Hello, I'm Bjorn, and as you can see, I'm back in a very fancy office. It's very nice, and that's because James Gunn has taken over DC. David Zaslav no longer has any control over me or this project, so, boom! The hell with you, you stinky guy. This is such a bad bit. I'm just gonna end this bit completely. No more David Zaslav jokes ever again. This is easily the worst Bjorn bit in the history of Bjorn bits. Now, speaking of a good Bjorn bit, I've been secretly sending mixed messages to everyone about the kind of content of this movie. I've said things that are in it that just aren't. I've been spreading misinformation like crazy. Like, for example, I told everyone about a week ago this is the darkest thing I've ever written, and that it's so brutal, and that everyone's gonna cry, and that half the cast die in it. It's complete misinformation. To be the truth, I like to spread misinformation on my YouTube channel and in my comments and in my Discord. It keeps people on their toes. But for this Thanksgiving, I decided to actually give you all a little treat. I'm not gonna lie. This is actually maybe my first script to have a truly happy ending. I'm not even shitting you. This one has a happy ending. So there is some darkness, maybe a little bit of bittersweet in there, maybe a couple deaths, but honestly, this script has a happy ending. And you're not gonna believe me until it actually comes. But yes, this one has a happy ending. Happy Thanksgiving. I decided to give you all a little break. The next movie, I can't say the same. So, without further ado, let's just get into it. And I'm sorry for lying to y'all for so long. I just like to cause problems. I like to troll a little bit. You can forgive me for that. Anyway, let's get into it.
All right, we're gonna basically pick up right where we left off. Once again, if you have not watched the previous parts, what are you doing here, man? Go watch that, nerd. Clearly you're interested. You clicked on this. Welcome, by the way. Anyway, we're gonna go right into it now. So go back and watch that if you haven't caught up yet. We see Flatline laying in a bed. Her eyes slowly open. She quickly pulls up her shirt, and we can see a large scar there where the knife impacted her earlier. It's already healed. We see Chemo's ghost sitting next to her. He says, "Thank God you're okay." He starts as if to reach for her hand, then pulls back, remembering. She says, "Yeah, I'm alive. Thanks to you, I think. You picked up a knife." Chemo says, "Yeah, I did." Philin says, "You're incredible." Chemo smiles and says, "You're the incredible one. You killed Black Canary." Flatline says, "Yeah, I promised. No more mercy. How am I not bleeding all over the damn place?" Chemo says, "The other Zatanna healed you. It was close, Nakia. We weren't sure you were going to make it. You got lucky." She says, "Yeah, lucky. It was close, Matthew. I didn't think I was going to survive. It was stupid to go out like that, and... Where are the others?" Chemo says, "They just left. They're doing it, Nakia. Going after the Justice League. Going after the Legion of Evil." Flatline says, "Not without me, they're not." She stands up from the bed and grabs her knife rope, which is sitting on the table across from her. She says, "No mercy. Let's get the rest of them." We're going to cut to Xanadu. We see I'm going to do a little retcon for the last episode. The last episode I ended with the teaser of them going through the portal. I'm actually going to cut that. Sorry, I made a mistake. I needed this scene before that and didn't want to do it last episode. So, bear with me. We see Xanadu holler to the crowds of people building up in front of the portal she's opened. It looks like a tear in the universe, and inside we can see an endless darkness. Xanadu says, "Listen to me. There are rules you must follow if you want to make it through this alive. Do not stare into the shattering too long. There are worlds out there, different than ours, and in some of them there are things that can infect you just by seeing them. If they take you, I cannot help. So try not to look too wrong. You may see some interesting things as you stare, but believe me, it is not worth the risk." Some mumble nervously in the crowd. She says, "And don't stray off the trail. We will follow a specific path, the path to my world. If you stumble off and lose your way, I cannot stave you. These are not the true dangers, though. I'd hoped to have time to prepare you for this, but we don't have that luxury. There are things which lurk between worlds, foul creatures which do not have a dimension of their own. They are echoes of what once was in the multiverse. These echoes feed upon the multiversal energy of those who stray between worlds in order to survive. They do not see the world as we do. They see it through perception and consciousness of themselves. You must not think of them. If you see them, pay them no mind. Don't stare at them. Don't fear them. Don't even acknowledge them. If they sense you, if they see you, there is not a force in existence that I know of which can save you. They will feed upon your dimensional resonance and slowly but surely wipe you from the face of the multiverse. Not only will you die here, but you will cease to exist everywhere, in every conceivable universe. It would be a death on a cosmic scale. So once again, I repeat, do not look them in the eyes. Do not acknowledge them. Don't speak to them. And most importantly, don't let yourself get lost in the worlds around you, because they will see you. They all look around nervously. Then Blue Beetle steps forward. Don't acknowledge them. Don't think about them. Don't look at them. Got it. I'll go first. I'm the leader, right? Gotta give a good example. He takes a deep breath, then steps into the tear. He steps forward into the shattering. We see the shattering of the multiverse in all of its splendor. The horizon is filled with thousands and thousands of cracks. Colorful light shines through them, making it almost a mosaic of shifting colors backed behind a broken sheet of glass. Ever so faintly, in each line, we can see scenes playing out. They're too far away to make out. A small, almost ethereal path winds forward and then branches into 1,000 different directions, all made of cracked stone. We can see an occasional floating person dangling in the air as if suspended. Their eyes are blank and empty, featuring a black void that seems to go nowhere. Completely dead, they hang in the air. Around them, strange, lanky, disproportionate-like creatures dance and twirl in the air. The multiversal echoes and their victims. We hear the song Empire Ants by the Gorillaz begin to play as Blue Beetle stares out over the horizon, both terrifying and beautiful. I actually played with AI, and I made some fan art of what this should look like, so you can kind of picture it. It's a very bizarre concept, and this is original to my version of DC. I've never found anything like the shattering in fiction. It's completely my idea. So if you want to know what it looks like, there's some fan art. I might actually intersperse with fan art a couple of times, because there's some visuals in this particular act that are kind of bizarre. So I thought it would be easier to make a visual representation of them. Blue Beetle says, "This is breathtaking." Shade steps up to him. "It's disconcerting. It's shattering, even now." As he says it, we see another section of the sky shatter into even more shards. The cracks grow finer and finer, spreading out as if the glass is in the middle of shattering. The group begins to walk, following Xanadu. Occasionally, we see a body floating closer to the ground around the stone walkway. We can see in detail that their eyes are gone, and instead, their empty eye sockets are filled with a seemingly infinite void, almost three-dimensional within the socket. Strange dark lines pulse around their floating bodies. We see a particular woman eye one nervously. Her eyes happen to glance up and briefly catch the attention of one of the dangling, odd creatures dancing up there. She quickly looks away and keeps walking. Element Woman approaches Xanadu and begins a conversation. She says, "Shade tells me you have visions sometimes. Things that have never happened or will happen at some point. And you see them." Xanadu says, "You spoke the truth. I do at times glimpse visions of what is to come." Element Woman says, "Oh, that's good, because recently I find myself seeing things. People and places I've never been. Sequences that seem real just happen to me in them. I mean, I've always had strange thoughts, little glimpses of things I couldn't understand, like the upside down man and other things, but it's different. It's like it's getting worse. What is it like, what you do?" Xanadu says, "Ever since I was a child, I've been able to divinate the future. Always under strict rules and rituals. My mother made sure of it. The information I saw was controlled. But there was something else. A curse of the bloodline. My sister had it too before it drove her to go too far. We would get fits, bright flashing looks into the future, and what I saw would always come to pass without fail. Well, that wasn't until last year, I suppose. I saw a vision of a shadow consuming the world, of a moon shattering and Metropolis consumed. It didn't come to pass. I changed my future. I think these glimpses I get, and perhaps you get, are glimpses of what could be, not what will be. I think maybe I've been wrong all along. If you are truly seeing the future, it is not a curse as I thought. It is a chance for you to change what you've seen once you understand it. Element Woman says, and what if I don't understand what I'm seeing? Xanadu says, then you must try to figure it out before it's too late. Element Woman nods. She says, thank you for everything. Even after I tried to hurt you, you helped me. You're a good person, Xanadu. Xanadu smiles and says, I try. We're going to kind of pan the camera back until we see the same woman from earlier. Suddenly, she stops. We can see the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. She turns, then begins to collapse. As she's about to hit the ground, suddenly, we're somewhere else. The woman finds herself in an alleyway. She's in different clothing. A large, complicated Victorian dress with purple and green silks. We can see gaslit lamps bolted to the stone walls around her. They fight back the shadows that flicker in the alley. The woman looks around confused. Then we hear footsteps approaching. They grow closer, echoing off the walls. She takes a step back reflexively. Nervous, she's beginning to shake. From the shadows, a figure emerges. It's the Batman. Only his outfit is different, more Victorian. Basically, think the Gotham by Gaslight version of Batman. The woman says, Batman? The Batman keeps stepping closer and closer to her. He's still mostly covered by the shadows. Just on the edge of the lamplight, he stops. The woman is more confused than ever. She takes another nervous step backwards. Batman says, don't leave. Please. Suddenly, writhing tentacles begin to slither from his back. They grow a sickly purple green. His eyes glow green as well. The woman screams. The Batman says, Zarganathic calls you. He wants you. The tentacles begin to lurch towards the woman. She screams, turning to run. We can hear footsteps pounding behind her. She comes into a desolate street, better lit up by flickering lanterns. Suddenly, a massive eye opens up in the sky above her. We hear an echoing, creepy voice say, I see you. The woman stumbles back, then trips and falls. As she falls, we transition somewhere else in a clean cut. She's now standing behind a bar. She stumbles back and knocks over a bottle, confused. It falls to the ground and shatters. She looks around wildly. She's in different clothes now, wearing a sort of spaghetti western attire. A voice says, something wrong, Kate? She looks up. Two men are sitting at a bar in front of her. Both are cowboys. One wears an eye patch, and the other wears a strange set of red glasses. Kate says, where am I? What is this? Who are you? The man says, what are you talking about? She holds up a hand to her nose, and blood drips violently. In the mirror worked into the bar, we can see two figures sitting behind her, the echoes, their eyes wide open. In them, we can see an endless nothingness. They say, we see you, we found you, echoed amongst themselves, like overlapping voices. Suddenly, the woman falls to the ground in a heap. The two men at the bar look surprised. One man lowers his glasses. His eyes glow a strange, reflective gray like a predator. We recognize him as John Weber. He looks over the bar at the woman. It's clear she's dead. She's not breathing and blood runs from her nose. John says, what happened to her? Ghost Eye says, I've heard about this. They call it the sudden death. Person's acts confused, then drops dead. Never seen it myself. Damn. And I like this saloon too. John says, well, let's not stick around. Last thing we need is a law poking around. The camera moves up, and we focus on the dead woman behind the bar. We transition from her face back to the shattering. The woman's body is completely still, and her eyes are vacant. Blood runs from her nose, eyes, and mouth. She begins to float off the ground, twirling into the air until she's completely suspended. She becomes a floating corpse just like all the rest. Her death in the multiverse is complete, dying in every single universe all at once. One of the survivors vomit. But they can't stop. They keep moving forward. As they do, in the distance, we can see a section of the sky crack again as the shattering grows. Xanadu yells, don't stop moving! We're getting close! The camera moves ahead, past some of the echoes floating ominously in the shattering. The camera moves up into one of the cracks of the shattering. And from it, we're going to cut back to Inverse Earth. We see the Inverse Justice League standing on the street in Metropolis. We can see the Daily Planet looming in the background as like a cool visual. Mirror Master says, "Did you put out the video, Lex?" Lex nods. He says, "I uploaded it about 10 minutes ago. They'll be here soon. They won't be able to ignore the bait." We see Flatline run up to the others in her costume. She's out of breath. There's still a tear and blood stain in it from where she fought Black Canary. Lex says, "What are you doing out of bed?" Flatline says, "You thought I'd let you do this without me? You know me better than that. You need me." Luthor says, "You always were a tough one. Thanks to you, they're down one before the fight even begins." Flatline says, "I'm gonna kill another one." Suddenly, a portal opens up. If I recall correctly, Cyborg can kind of open up like tech portals. So we're gonna use that to sort of get the evil Justice League here, just for the sake of speed in the narrative, basically. So they're gonna show up. It's the members I've announced previously: Nightwing, Robin, Nightwing/Robin, Supergirl, Cyborg, Martian Manhunter, and Inverse Zatanna. Supergirl says, "Oh, how nice of you to tell us where to find you. Saved us some effort." Lex Luthor calls back, "Are we just going to stand here and quip?" Oh, I forgot to mention this, but he's in his big suit, like his classic comic book suit. Supergirl says, "No, I suppose we aren't. Kill them." Both sides begin to run towards each other, breaking into individual fights. We see Lex fight Cyborg using his tech suit. Mirror Master fires his laser piston at Nightwing, who dodges, trying to move in close. Flatline begins to attack Robin too, launching her knife rope. He expertly dodges each of the attacks, trained by the Batman himself. We see Firefly launch towards Martian Manhunter quickly, engulfing him in fire from his flamethrower. Martian Manhunter seems caught off guard by the attack. He panics, not knowing what to do as he burns. Fire is his weakness. He flies upward. Firefly laughs and chases after him. In the middle of the chaos, we see John and Zatanna suddenly slump, stopping where they are out of nowhere. We're going to cut to a dark void. We can see purple smoke twirling around. Both John and Zatanna appear there. In front of them, we see Inverse Zatanna. Inverse Zatanna says, "Have you thought of my proposal, John?" Constantine says, "Not interested." Inverse Zatanna says, "We'll see. Once I take care of the other me, you'll change your tune. You'll have no choice left." They're going to go into a spell battle. Zatanna and Constantine are going to kind of team up, combining spells. Very cool, over-the-top set piece. Just whatever. Let the VFX guys go crazy. I don't like to linger on these sorts of fights because whatever you're imagining in your head is 10 times cooler than whatever I can come up with. But in the middle of all the chaos, our Zatanna is going to get hit by a blast and get knocked unconscious. From there, we're going to cut back to the streets. We see Constantine and Zatanna slumped down, staring at the ground. They seem transfixed. Flatline looks and says, "What's wrong with them?" She dodges a knife thrown from Nightwing as she does. Lex Luthor looks. "Hell if I know. It's the sorceress." He throws a punch at Cyborg, slamming his fist into him and throwing Cyborg away. He uses the opportunity to turn over and walk towards them. "Zatanna got them. Keep them alive and hope they win." Supergirl suddenly slams down and lands on the ground. She's entering the combat. Lex turns and looks at her in his suit. He drops his mask and says, "I'll take Supergirl." Flatline says, "I can keep them alive." Lex Luthor says, "Right. Time to kill a Kryptonian." He pops his arm out and a blade made of kryptonite pops free. In the middle of the melee of the fight, we're going to see Nightwing notice Zatanna and John Constantine unconscious. He laughs, pulling 3 shuriken from his belt. He throws them at John Constantine. Flatline sees and thrusts her hand in the way, catching each of the shuriken, sticking into her arm. Really fucking brutal. She winces and blood drips from her hands, but she saved John Constantine. Robin laughs. "You took the bait." He begins to move in close, taking her weakness to his advantage. The two are going to get into a hand-to-hand fight in all the chaos. We can see the other fight sort of happening in the background. Mirror Master is now taking on Cyborg, firing his laser pistol and keeping his distance. She begins a melee attack with Robin, but she's obviously on the back foot. She's still recovering from her previous night's little adventure, and she's now got shurikens in her arms. So she's on the back foot. Robin is relentless against her. In the middle of the fight, she says, "Why did you do it? Why did you kill Damien?" Robin laughs. "He was too weak, too much like my father." Oh, the Batman got his claws in him too deep. There was no recovering that. I follow my orders. Flatline screams and throws the knife rope. It cuts Dick Grayson on the cheek, and he manages to dodge just out of the way. He pulls out one of his stun batons and nails Flatline with it in the chest. She lets out a howl and then punches him, sending him backwards. The two are back where they started. Flatline comes in and dives at Robin, knocking him to the ground. Robin tries to stick her with the stun baton, but she kicks it away. She begins to push her own arm towards him. The sharp ends of the shuriken sticking out of her arm begin to approach Robin's neck. She snarls, trying to push her hand closer and closer to him. The tips of the shurikens are now just beginning to brush Robin's neck. We can see them leave a small cut. She yells, "I'm gonna fucking kill you!" The shurikens drip with her own blood as they get closer. He struggles to fight back, and she continues to kick him in the side with her own leg as she pushes it closer. Finally, Robin screams. Using all of his strength, he pushes Flatline off. She's sent to the ground and hits her head on a loose piece of rock on the ground. She's dazed, and blood runs from her head. She stumbles and falls to the ground. Robin stands up and laughs. He draws his sword. After all that, a hit to the head with a rock. What a way to go, Flatline. He draws closer to her. We can see her limp body reflected in the blade. Her eyes are confused. She tries to sit up and fails, flopping backwards. We can see her limp body reflected in the blade. A sinister, bloodthirsty smile grows across Nightwing's face. He raises the blade up for the kill. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna enjoy this one. As his blade begins to fall, we see a flash of blue light. Chemo possesses Robin, and the blade stops midair. His eyes look confused. He begins to struggle, and we can see his entire body begin to shake. Then his eyes turn a deep, glowing blue. Robin turns and looks at Flatline. Nikia, are you okay? She seems to be recovering from her daze. She looks up at him. Matthew? Robin says in a sinister, kind of overlapping, like not right voice. Yeah, this one's not so tough in the mind. He's weak. The possessed Robin holds the blade out, then turns it towards his own body. We see chemo in Robin's body say, GG. He thrusts the blade into himself, then twists, spilling Robin's guts. We see chemo's ghost launch out of the back of Robin's body. Robin looks down at horror at his own guts falling out of his body, then screams. He falls down, blood flowing from his body. It doesn't take long before he's completely quiet. Flatline stumbles to her feet, then looks over at chemo. She smiles. Then looks over at chemo. She smiles. Chemo says, bizarrely, that felt good. We see Firefly and Martian Manhunter soaring through the sky. Firefly chases after the burning Manhunter with his jetpack, changing and moving his direction midair. Manhunter is screaming and darting around, desperately trying to find a way to put out the fire. Finally, Firefly manages to grab him in a bear hug. The two begin to plummet through the sky, barely held aloft by the jetpack. We can see his skin is burned by the fire coming from Manhunter's skin. Firefly barely even reacts. I've been waiting for this. You should know. I have a terminal disease. It's been eating at me for weeks. I'm a dead man. And I made this suit just for you, you Xeno fuck. He begins twisting dials as his skin burns and he clings to the Manhunter. We can see the pressure gauge on the back of his suit begin to increase. And his fuel tank begins to burst with licks of flame. It's about to implode. Firefly says, you know, in hell, there's nothing but fire. I'm looking forward to seeing you there. The tank explodes into a giant ball of fire, and the Manhunter and Firefly go down a literal ball of glory. We're going to cut to Lex Luthor as he battles Supergirl. He manages to cut her a few times with the kryptonite, but she's been slowly picking away at his suit. His arm is completely disabled, and she sends a burst of laser vision right towards him. He tries again, swinging wildly with the kryptonite sword, but misses. She hits him again with a fist, breaking the mask off his suit. His head's exposed. He knows what's coming, and so he makes a last-minute charge. Screaming with all of his might and running towards Supergirl, kryptonite blade out. Lex yells, for Bruce! He runs, kryptonite blade out, but he's too late. She merely smiles and sends a single bolt of her laser vision right through his skull. His body crumples to the floor right in front of her, the kryptonite blade only an inch from her. She laughs, and then turns to look at the rest of the fight. We're going to cut back to the shattering. We can see multiple people have now died. They're floating up behind the large group. People are nervous. Element Woman is holding Shade's hand. He clutches also to it tightly. Shade turns to look at her and accidentally catches sight of one of the echoes. Then suddenly, he's somewhere else. We're going to cut to blackness. A single stage light explodes onto the scene. It illuminates Shade sitting at his piano. He looks sad, somber. He begins to play. The melody is soft and somber. I'm just going to say, I'm not Sam from the Masochist. I can't write instrumental music. Forgive me. The music begins to pick up in intensity as Shade begins to sing. That's right, motherfuckers. We're getting a Shade musical number. Those who are in my Discord already know this is coming and have actually heard this. I did a lot of trial runs for this. I wrote the lyrics, realized I can't sing, and I was trying to find another solution for this because I wanted to do this scene, as silly as it is. The solution I fell upon was, once again, the miraculous power of AI technology, which can make an AI that can sing any lyrics you give it, and if you give it, like, keywords and descriptions of how you want the music to sound, you can even get the music to be right. So this isn't 100% great, like it's not all there, but I wrote a musical number and it's finished, and it's actually pretty okay. I think it's pretty damn catchy. So without further ado, the Shade musical number. I'm going to let the musical play out, and then when we get to sequences that are like things happening in between, I'm going to cut in and describe what's happening.
I'm back to the beginning. Along my madness, held back by only a magic fist. I destroyed my own home, and I know how the rest goes. Those I love will leave me again.
More stage lights appear, lighting further back. We can see the ruins of Meta surrounding him, only they don't look real. They're like backdrops for a stage play, made of cardboard.
It's always how this goes. Too much of a good thing, I suppose. Why must I be the changing man? Why must madness follow me? Can I just be sane? If even just for a day, I want a normal life and to have love that lasts. Is this too much to ask?
He lets the piano playing fall quiet. A single light shines on the opposite end of the stage, illuminating Nightshade. Nightshade says, "I never stopped loving you, Shade." Lights begin to reveal a band being staffed by all the members of Justice League Deck. They're each playing instruments. We see Dorothy on a trumpet, Xanadu on drums, Constantine playing a tuba or whatever instrument, and Flatline on a guitar. Then Nightshade begins to sing.
I'm still here, just trapped in your blade. You locked me away in that cursed place. I wanted the best for you. It was you that killed me, even after I offered you everything. Oh, my changing man, are you just so mad? You can't see what's plain. All those voices in your head, yet you won't listen to your heart. We can be together again. All you have to do is remove your seal.
She says, "Just take off the madness vest." The light on Nightshade vanishes, and then another one shines on Shade once more. We see rotten hands begin to climb up his body. They begin to pull at the madness vest. We can hear chanting, "Take it off, take it off, take it off, take it off, take it off." The chanting slowly fades into the beat of the score. Shade looks up, and Nightshade is right in front of him. "It was only ever a prison for you, Shade. Unleash what is you. Let yourself free of it." Shade bows his head. He lets the madness vest fall to the floor. Nightshade laughs. The music becomes chaotic and frenzied. The piano vanishes, and Shade is left standing on a stage. The ground begins to shake, and the stage rises from the ground. Members of Justice League Dark, previously on the instruments, transform into twisted versions of Nightshade. Her vocals become more sinister and aggressive.
Oh, my changing man, what a hard life you've lived. Even your mother tossed you away. Left at the bottom of a church's door. You grew up without love. You were just a lab rat, taken to an institute. All that despair, is that when your madness began? My poor changing man, did you ever stand a chance? But things are changing now. The shadows are closing in. He is close at hand.
Stop this now, you witch. I never asked for this. It was you who betrayed me.
Oh, the same. Surely you must see it, Shade.
The light shines on Shade again. He's holding the Dawn Spear. He looks at it confused as it warps the light around him. The bodies of the Justice League Dark surround him, blood soaking into the ground. It's as if he's taking Constantine's place.
Something's wrong, why am I singing on this stage? How am I holding this spear? Don't you think it's weird? It can't be here, yes it's clear. There's something very wrong here. Something very wrong. Something very wrong with me.
Oh, my changing man, you don't understand. You cannot change a thing. Your fates remain the same. Surely you must see it, Shade. Oh, my changing man, you'll never escape me again. Have you finally seen the truth?
A stage light illuminates Element Woman. Shade, come back to me, please. I can't lose you. Don't die. Save him, please, Xanadu. We hear a faint whisper. For as quiet as it is, it carries loudly. I can't help him. This is beyond me. They have seen him, and he will die. The shadows surround Element Woman, then crush her like a grape. Blood seeps across the floor, and Nightshade rises from it, coated in blood. The song continues.
What did you do to her? Why are you doing this? Is this only a game to you?
Oh, my changing man, you let me out again. The shadows cover everything.
I'll stop you again. You won't hurt my friends. I won't let you have your revenge. I'll stop you again. You won't hurt my friends. I won't let you have your revenge.
You're my changing man, you'll never escape me again. Have you finally seen the truth? Oh, my changing man, you let me out again. The shadows cover everything, not a life left spared. Darkness everywhere, no souls left there.
Stop this now. I want out. You're still too foul. Not the woman I love.
Oh, my changing man, the world is unprepared. The upside down man opens his tear. Oh, my changing man, can't you see it yet? It's all coming to an end. Oh, my changing man, it was you who let me through. Changing man, devil and will stain your hair. Stop it, stop together. Cursing man, the curse no longer binds you. Should you really be surprised? Changing man, surely you see it now. It was always your fault. All your efforts will be for naught.
Stop this now. I want out. You're still too foul. Not the woman I loved.
A stone pillar appears below Shade, rising him higher and higher. Bright neon lights appear behind him like a stage show. They spell Shade. It's massive and it flickers. We hear a chant. All of the Nightshades begin to climb up the side of the stone pillar, trying to reach Shade. They chant, changing man, changing man, changing man, changing man, changing man. The lit up stage begins to flash. The lit up sign begins to flash. Suddenly, its light vanishes and the whole screen is left in darkness. Two massive eyes open up in the darkness. They're twisted and odd, with bright purple pupils and a seemingly endless void-like darkness to them. A large rumbling voice shakes the room. I see you! The lit up sign behind Shade lights up once more. It spells I see you. Nightshade climbs onto the tower at last. She smiles and blood begins to run from Shade's nose. He collapses, falling off the side of the pillar, plummeting towards his death. We're going to cut to a pyramid in the desert. We see Shade standing atop a great pyramid, swirling colors of madness that fill the sky around him. Hundreds of people are laying on the ground with their arms held out praising him. He is their god. The changing man. He begins to levitate above the pyramid, and the entire sky becomes washed with colors. Suddenly, blood starts to run from his nose. He looks confused. Then a gigantic eye opens up in the background. The words are spoken once more that shake the very earth. We see you! We cut to a ruined city in Iraq. We see Shay dressed in military apparel. He clears a building with 3 other men. He turns a corner, and we see a terrorist armed with a gun. He shoots him, dropping him instantly. Suddenly he stops and holds a hand to his head. Blood begins to run from his nose and eyes. He stumbles to the ground, and his men surround him. An eye opens up down the hall, filling the entire space. The voice rattles the earth again. We see you! This version of Shade screams. The reality around him begins to warp, and we can see the shattering. Another version of Shade lies on the floor of the shattering. He screams also. Beyond him, thousands of different shades in thousands of different costumes all scream. Hundreds of massive eyes opening up in the darkness. We see you! We see all of you! We slam cut to Shade, stumbling over in the shattering. Blood running from his eyes and ears. Element Woman screams and begs Xanadu to help him. But she can't. He begins to levitate off the ground, floating up to join all the other bodies in the sky, completely devoid of life. His entire existence being erased from the multiverse. We're going to cut to Constantine. We see Inverse Zatanna and John facing each other down. Zatanna says, I would have loved you. Constantine says, and I wouldn't have been interested. Inverse Zatanna says, I know what you want. Your eyes lingered on it the first time I saw you. Well, you can't have it. She slips the portal ring off her finger, then destroys it with a magical burst of energy. Constantine says, no! Zatanna says, that's right. You're trapped here with me. But not for long. You're just like mine, the one who died. There's no saving you. I won't make the same mistake twice. Swirling magic begins to appear in her hand. I'm gonna kill you, John Constantine. John cracks a smile. Magical energy begins to ooze off of him. Zatanna smiles as well. God, John, you're so powerful. It's effortless for you, isn't it? But you're still holding back, trying to impress her, that weak version of me. Her mercy is a weakness, a plague. John says, you know, the thing is, we hear a loud bang, and a hole is blown through John's duster. Zatanna looks down with surprise, and we see blood running from her shirt. John slides his duster back, revealing the holy shotgun. John says, magic ain't everything. I'll give you this. You had one thing right about me, love. I'm a ruthless bastard. Inverse Zatanna tries to take a step forward, but then stumbles. She falls to the ground as blood oozes out of her body. The purple clouds begin to fade away. Inverse Zatanna falls to the ground in a heap. Our version of Zatanna gets up from her enchantment and stumbles over to John. She sees Zatanna's body on the floor. Our Zatanna says, how did you kill her by yourself? John flashes to the shotgun. He says, oh, that turns out all the magic in the world won't protect you from a bullet you don't see coming. Zatanna actually smiles. I would have never thought of that. Constantine says, I know. He gestures to the body. That's why it worked. You tend to solve problems with magic. Sometimes I prefer a more hands-on approach. Zatanna laughs. The dark void of magic around them begins to fade away, bleeding back to Metropolis. Constantine turns to Zatanna. She destroyed the portal ring. Zatanna says, we'll find another one. For now, we've got bigger problems. We're going to cut back to the fight. We see Cyborg launch a blast at Mirror Master, who's hit and sent spiraling to the floor. Flatline tries to approach him from the side, and he hits her with a taser dart. She screams as the electricity pulses through her. We see Mirror Master get back up. He pulls the EMP grenade they built from his belt. While Cyborg is turned away facing Flatline, he pulls the pin and throws it. His aim is good. It's heading right for Cyborg. Almost robotically, Cyborg turns and catches it from the air. He holds the pin down, keeping it from detonating. He looks at it and smiles. An EMP bomb. That's your plan. I was an all-star quarterback. He throws the EMP away with little effort. We can hear it begin to tick again as it flies away. Suddenly, something swoops by in the air and snags it. The camera reveals Sportsmaster on his rocket skis holding a lacrosse stick. He's got the EMP cradled in it. He says, you may have been an all-star, but I'm the master. He hurls the EMP back and it detonates right in front of Cyborg. Almost immediately, all of his tech shuts down and he falls limp. Only his eye is moving in a panic. Sportsmaster turns midair on his skis and drifts down. He holds his hand out and presses a button, and his javelin extends out. He says, "And now for the gold medal throw." He turns and hurls the javelin. The camera zooms in on Cyborg's one eye as it opens wide. The javelin pierces right through it and then goes out the other side of his body. Sportsmaster flies down and skids to a stop on the ground next to Flatline and Mirror Master. He says, "Bullseye." We see Supergirl finishing off Lex's body. It falls to the ground. She turns to face the other two next to Cyborg's body. She laughs. "He was weak anyway. I don't need any of these clowns. This ends now." John Constantine and Zatanna join up, having just woken up from their illusions. We get a brief team-up shot of them. Mirror Master says, "Just in time. You remember the plan? I'm the bait. You're the trap." We're going to cut to the shattering. We see Element Woman trying to pull Shade down, but he continues to be pulled up into the sky. She cries one last time, and something changes. Her eyes begin to grow bright white, and her skin becomes luminescent. It glows faintly with a white light. All of the multiversal echoes turn to look at her and scream in an unhuman way. Light seems to pour off of her, illuminating the whole shattering. The multiversal echoes begin to back away, then seem to flee deeper into the shattering, out of sight. Shade's body begins to lower down, pulled by an Element Woman. The dark, endless nothing in his eyes begins to fade away, replaced with a bright white light. Then Shade's eyes open and turn normal. He looks up confused. We see quick shots of all the other different versions of Shade waking up with bright white in their eyes. Then it fades away. He says, "What?" Element Woman hugs him tight, sobbing. Xanadu looks baffled. "What did you do? What are you really?" Element Woman shakes her head. "I don't know." We're going to cut to the shadow dimension. We see Dorothy creeping into Upside Down Man's room. He sits on his throne, but he doesn't seem to see her. Instead, his head moves in all different directions. He's looking in one direction, then another, jerking around in an awkward way. We can see faint glowing lights in front of him. They look like the broken lines of the shattering, moving around in front of him and growing and shrinking. She creeps by him carefully, then reaches the skeleton in the cabinet. She carefully opens the case, then slides the ring off its finger. She lets out a relieved sigh, then clutches it, taking it back to Dr. Mist. Finally, they can escape the shadow dimension. We're going to cut to Inverse Earth. We see Mirror Master step out in front, walking towards Supergirl. She notices him. "I really enjoyed the show. Honestly, I probably would have done it anyway. They were starting to irritate me. So arrogant. Not close to the worthy successors for what we lost. I'm going to kill you now." She begins to fly forward towards him at full speed, breaking the sound barrier. Glass shatters in all the buildings around her as the sonic boom goes off. Mirror Master holds his ground. At the last second, a magical mirror appears right in front of him, and he touches it. Supergirl flies straight into the mirror dimension. Mirror Master takes a deep breath. He nods to the others, then drifts into the mirror, holding his kryptonite spear in one hand. We see Supergirl in the mirror dimension. She looks around confused. Warping versions of her are reflected in all the glass around her. We can see her saving the day, helping people, battling aliens, fighting Darkseid. Thousands of different images all playing out at once. Mirror Master says, we hear Mirror Master's voice echoing through the mirror dimension. "I'm tired of appealing to a better half I know you don't have." Supergirl laughs, looking around all the hollow mirrors. She's not impressed. "I could leave you here to die slowly, let you starve, surrounded by reflections of what could have been. I really want to. I imagine your suffering, and it puts a smile on my face. But I don't want to be that guy. Someone Glider would have hated." Supergirl says, "So you're going to spare me then?" She laughs. "This is why you always lose. You really should be more like Flatline. She understands the cost of war. You pacifists never got the memo, and you'll always lose for it." Mirror Master steps out of a mirror in front of her. "I think you misunderstand." She reaches out to grab him, and her fingers pass right through an illusion. Suddenly, a spear of kryptonite rips right through Supergirl's chest. The camera pans around, and we see another Mirror Master holding the spear. The one in front of her vanishes into a fractal. Mirror Master says, "I just said I wouldn't let you suffer. I never said I was going to let you live. You've spread nothing but suffering for too long, like a rabid dog. Someone has to put you down. Supergirl looks around desperately, but she's too weak. The kryptonite is killing her, sapping her strength. Blood is leaking from her bodies. Her eyes drift to the mirror. We see a version of her saving a civilian from a car crash. The people smile and cheer her name. The little girl she saves hugs her tight. Her eyes go wide, then she dies. Her body falls to the floor in the mirror dimension. Mirror Master falls to his knees next to her. Tears in his eyes. Blood sprayed across his face. It's the first time he's ever killed someone. We're going to cut back to the shadow dimension. We see Upside Down Man entering Dorothy's room. He says, "Dorothy, I've been doing some thinking. There may be a way to hold the shattering back for a time without destroying the humans. I've been watching them, and I think you might be right." He cuts off as he realizes Dorothy isn't in the room. "Dorothy?" He looks around. We briefly follow him as he goes from room to room, becoming more and more confused, then angry. He holds his hand out, and the living shadow comes to him like a dog. It pools there and whispers something to his ear. He says, "Find her." We're going to cut to Inverse Earth. We see Flatline sitting down. The battle is won. Everything is over. In the distance, we can see Mirror Master dragging Supergirl's body out of the mirror dimension. People around them begin to cheer. And the other members that survive the Justice League let out a holler of joy. Even Constantine and Zatanna hug each other. Not Flatline. She looks down at the floor. We see Chemo's ghost appear behind her. He says, I think it's time, Nakia. I love you. I really do, but I can't stay here anymore. You made a promise, Nakia. You promised me that we would do this, and I feel the beckon. The other side, it calls me. This world is cold. She nods her head, but doesn't want to look at him. It's breaking her heart. He says, "We had a good run. Gave it a good shot, the best we could." Flatline nods again. "But it's time, Nakia. I'm ready to go." She shakes her head. "We can find another way. I could bring you back. There are certain magics that can do it. I've read." Chemo says, "Nakia, look at me." She turns to look at him. "I've been living on borrowed time as long as I can remember. I spent so much of it trying to claw the life that I forgot to live. Until I met you. Every day I had with you was a gift I didn't deserve. You made me so much better. I came to terms with my death a while ago, and it's been coming for a long time." Flatline looks up at him. "I'm already gone. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. Hey, you've seen the other side. It's not so bad." Flatline says, "Using my own words against me. That's not fair." Chemo says, "At least this way it'll have a point. I'll finally get to kiss you." Flatline squeezes her eyes shut, then nods. She says, "Fine, I'll do it." We hear Unchained Melody by the Righteous Brotherhood begin to play, the same song from the movie Ghost. As she leans in and kisses Chemo, blue-green energy sparks around them, and we can see tears leaking from her eyes. Chemo's body begins to shimmer, warping. Then, in a poof of brilliant glowing light, he vanishes. His soul passed on. Flatline begins to break down in tears. She lost the last thing in her life, and she falls to her knees. After a while, we see a hand touch her shoulder. She looks up, and we see Sportsmaster. He says, "You hurt, kid?" Flatline says, "No, not really." Sportsmaster says, "So he passed on then?" Nakia looks surprised. "How?" Sportsmaster says, "Come on, kid. You think I didn't notice you've been talking to the air? I know better than most how hard that is. I'm sorry." Flatline says, "It's what he wanted. I thought that might make it easier, but it didn't." Sportsmaster says, "It's never easy, but it does get better. With time. You're strong. You've got this." We hear a sound like sparking energy. The both of them look up, and we see a portal open in front of them. Dr. Myth steps out, then Dorothy's spinner. She recovers the portal ring from the ground, then looks up. Flatline and Sportsmaster stand up, and Flatline clutches her knife. Dorothy sees them, and her mouth drops open. "Nakia? Krok?" Both Sportsmaster and Flatline look confused at each other. Sportsmaster asks, "Do you know her?" Flatline says, "No, I've never seen her." Dorothy rushes over and hugs them both tightly. They both look very confused but accept it. She's a child after all. Dorothy says, "I thought you were dead." Dr. Mist touches her shoulder. He says, "They are dead. These aren't yours. This isn't our world. I can feel it in the magic." Dorothy says, "That's impossible. I asked the ring to take us to Zatanna." Flatline says, "You're hers then. The castaways. They're over there." Dorothy spots Zatanna and Constantine at the same time they do. Zatanna runs to her and wraps her up in a hug. She says, "You're okay." Dorothy says, "I'm fine. I went to another place, but we escaped." Dr. Mist walks up. "We have a problem. There was a thing on the other side with us. It was bad news. Dark magic. More powerful than anything I've ever felt. It terrified me." Zatanna says, "What happened to it?" Dr. Mist says, "We think it's trapped, but it's trying to claw its way out. We have to warn the others and prepare. Do you know where Xanadu is?" Zatanna says, "She went somewhere else, another world than us. I lost contact with her a while ago. They were trying to escape their world and get back to ours." Dorothy says, "We can help you get back. We took this when we left." She holds open her hand and reveals the portal ring. Constantine says, "That kid is some bloody good news. This world is so upside down you wouldn't believe it." We see Mirror Master work his way over to Flatline and Sportsmaster. Sportsmaster says, "It's done then." Mirror Master nods, his hands coated in blood. Flatline says, "I know that was hard, but you did the right thing." Sportsmaster says, "She's right. Thanks to you, my little girl can grow up in a world that's good and safe. No fear from those monsters." Mirror Master says, "It felt good. Driving that spear into her. That's the part that terrifies me. Bruce was right. It would be so easy to fall into that world and be just like them." Sportsmaster says, "We won't. We're going to build something better." Mirror Master says, "I hope so." People begin to trickle slowly out of the buildings. Even a news helicopter flies overhead. We briefly see a shot of the TV inside the bar playing news reports that the Inverse Legion of Evil are dead. People begin to cheer and celebrate in the streets, crying out to their heroes who won the day. Sportsmaster smiles and waves full of confidence, making up for the other two looking somber. Suddenly, the camera begins to move towards Flatline. We get a dolly zoom shot of her face, which is like where the camera zooms in and moves at the same time, so it makes this like kind of like weird focusing effect. You've seen this in Jaws. Her eyes widen. We get a stylistic shot of the hairs on the back of her neck standing up. "What is that?" Zatanna and Constantine also look up, frightened. Dorothy looks confused, and so does Dr. Mist. Dr. Mist says, "What is it?" Constantine says, "I don't know. Something bad." We cut to Xanadu and the others. We see the survivors working their way through the shattering. Finally, they reach one of the ends of the path. We can see a large portal begin to rip open as Xanadu speaks the incantation words. The survivors begin to pour through the portal. Those that survive are haggard and tired. They've seen horrible things. Finally, we see Xanadu step into Earth. She's home, and she's made it. Almost instantly, she's struck by a strange feeling. She holds a hand to her head, then collapses to the floor. She looks up, and her eyes are solid white. We're plunged into a vision, and it's the same one we've seen 100 times, the same one that's been plaguing her. Metropolis stands proud and beautiful. Suddenly, living shadows erupt from it. They begin to consume everything, and the buildings begin to topple. We see people screaming and running. They're pulled by tendrils of shadows and consumed. We see the flash of a child falling into a shadow. We see Zatanna and Constantine running towards a portal. Zatanna is crying as she looks over her shoulder at the destruction. Jean pulls her along by her hand. They reach a portal. Suddenly, the screen flickers, tearing for a moment. We see Flatline standing with them, screaming and trying to go back as they pull her towards the portal. Then she's gone. It's only Zatanna and Constantine. They step into the portal. The scene begins to flicker again, and Flatline's there, being pulled into the portal. We see Xanadu, her face echoing 1,000 times. She screams, and even the scream is echoed. We're going to cut to Inverse Earth. All of our heroes look down the Metropolis street. Zatanna looks completely panicked. Something is wrong. Something is very wrong. The people continue to gather in the streets, cheering. Suddenly, something appears in the air. A few wisps of dark shadow. Then, it begins to split open like a crack, a tear in reality. Two gray fingers with nails cling to the edges of the tear, pulling it open, pulling it wide. We see the upside down man begin to pull himself through the hole, ripping open a tear as he does. His body twists and contorts through, his head bent in the wrong direction, and his back completely facing the wrong way. He climbs out of the hole on all fours, ripping open the hole behind him until finally he makes it through. He twists his bones back into the right position, and then spins his back around so that he's all in one piece. Finally, he looks up. His terrible shark teeth are clear, and his eyes are full of rage. Dorothy sees him and screams, "It's him!" John Constantine's hand ignites into fire. Dorothy screams, pulling on him, "Don't fight him, don't fight him, we have to run! Use the portal ring!" Sportsmaster looks and says, "What is that?" Dr. Mist says, "The Upside Down Man." Shadows begin to leak from the tear behind the Upside Down Man. His eyes seem to focus on Dorothy. Then they scan around him, seeing all the people. His face turns into a sneer. "Always the same. You lead her astray. Trying to take her from me. I was going to show mercy to you. But you humans are always the same. A blight, a plague." He stops as if realizing something. "I'm the cure." The shadows erupt from him, beginning to kill the people, ripping them to shreds and tearing them apart. Upside Down Man begins to walk towards Dorothy in a strange, creepy gait. She begins to back away. She trips and drops the portal ring. It rolls down the street away from her, getting lost in the chaos of people screaming and running. She starts climbing towards it. Upside Down Man gets closer and begins to float into the air. The buildings in the distance collapse as the living shadow consumes them. Xanity's vision brought to life. It smashes through the streets, killing people as it went. Mirror Master says, "We have to stop him. Constantine, the mirror! I can trap it in the mirror dimension." Constantine and Zatanna work together to conjure a mirror. They send it flying towards Upside Down Man, and he's pulled into the mirror dimension and swallowed. We see Mirror Master shrink into his own mirror shard. He finds himself back in the twisting halls of the mirror dimension. We can see reflections of him all around him. One in communist China, another battling people in a jungle wearing an Aztec outfit. We see Upside Down Man also looking around, surrounded by reflections. Upside Down Man says, "The mirror dimension. How could a human learn to come here?" Mirror Master says, "Clearly you underestimate us. I don't know what you are, but I won't let you rain terror on my city. I'm going to stop you, even if I have to trap you in this twisting world forever." Upside Down Man says, "You think this confuses me? You don't get it! I built this place!" We see Mirror Master pause. That caught him off guard. Upside Down Man says, "It was a whim. One of my early projects. A failed experiment. I tried to find others like me. You see, it let me learn a truth. I am alone in your shatterings. Do you know what I see when I look into these mirrors?" The creature turns and looks right at Mirror Master. "I see only you." The mirrors begin to shatter all around him. A small wisp of the living shadow snags Mirror Master by his throat and drags him through mirrors that shatter as he presses them. In each one, we see a reflection of what could have been, a version of Mirror Master. Then, he comes face to face with Upside Down Man. Upside Down Man holds him up by his shadow and says, "You tried to take her from me, and your world will pay. All your worlds will pay." Upside Down Man opens his mouth, revealing his razor-sharp teeth. "No more humans." He cuts off Mirror Master's head with the living shadow as a blade. Mirror Master's eyes go wide as his head slides off his body. We see where he's looking. A single reflection. He's holding a woman at gunpoint with his laser pistol, committing crime in an alternate universe. He truly is the one of his kind, the only good version of himself. He was alone. It breaks his heart as he dies. We cut outside the mirror dimension. All the others stare at the mirror as Dorothy finally grabs the portal ring. She holds it up. We see Mirror Master's head get thrown from the mirror. It falls into the floor and rolls lazily till it's looking right towards our heroes. Flatline screams. Then the shadows begin to ooze out from the mirror dimension and explode outwards, beginning their reign of terror once more. They climb building and tear through people who are running. They drop part of a building and it falls into some rubble. We see a child crying as her mother is crushed by the rubble. The shadows close around her like hungry predators eyeing prey. We see Sportsmaster notice the child. Flatline looks at him with fear. "Don't!" Sportsmaster says, "And leave a kid. That's not my way." He taps his boots and the rocket skis come out. He flies at full speed, twirling towards the child in the living shadow, leaving a cloud of smoke in his trail. He snags the kid just as the shadows are about to consume her, then twirls in the air, pulling up, spinning to avoid the shadows that are lurching up to grab him. He dodges them with ease. He pulls the child close. He whispers, "I've got you. You're gonna be okay." A building begins to collapse towards him, and he spins, smashing through a window. He flies through an office building, dodging falling debris as the building crumbles to the ground. Holding the child tight, he explodes out through the top of the building as it collapses behind him. Then he spins down. He's gonna make it. He works his way back towards the others. We can see Dorothy beginning to open up a portal with the portal ring. Then a shadow tendril clings to the back of his rocket ski and snaps it off. He begins to twirl, and the child falls from his arm. He screams, reaching for her, but he's too late. She falls below into the shadow. The tendrils of the living shadow cling up towards her like fingers, grabbing her and pulling her into the shadows hungrily. He begins to plummet towards the ground. He crashes into a heap on the cement. He sits up bloodied, and we can see the shadow closing in around him. Flatline is screaming, trying to run towards him, but Zatanna holds her back. We can see Dorothy finally get her portal open in the background. They start to drag Flatline towards it, recreating what Xanadu saw in her vision. She fights and kicks. Sportsmaster smiles to her. "Go." We see Upside Down Man step from the shadows behind him, and then the shadows envelop him like a wave of water, completely covering him. We see Zatanna stepping right in front of the portal. Constantine shoves a weeping Flatline through it, forcing her to go. Zatanna looks back over the shadows as they consume the entire city. Buildings crumble and fall. Others are completely engulfed in darkness. Zatanna says, "We have to help them." Constantine says, "We can't see. Not yet. I don't know what this is, but it's bad." Xanadu says, "All those people." Constantine pulls her into the portal, and they vanish. It closes behind them, winking out of existence. The camera pulls back, and we can see Xanadu watching the shadows consume everything. We're now in her vision. She's seeing the same thing at the same time. She knows that she hadn't changed the future at all. It's still going to happen, all of it. We can see that wash over her face. We get a shot of Earth as it's completely consumed by darkness. We see Upside Down Man coalesce from the shadows. He screams in anger, Dorothy escaping his clutches again. Shadows snake off him, firing him into the distance, and we can see the moon shatter into two pieces, splitting in half. His power is so great that even his rage shattered the very moon. It's going to look really cool for like a visual set piece in the background. Shadows cling around Xanadu, then she falls, landing somewhere else. She's in the middle of an empty city block. We see Dorothy Spinner clutching her eye. A large bleeding cut runs down her face. Her eye is gone and blood seeps between her fingers. She's sobbing and panicking. We see a bloody body somewhere in the distance. It's fuzzy, out of focus. We can't see who it is. We see Zatanna approach Dorothy. Zatanna says, "Dorothy, you have to listen to me. I wasn't a part of that. I would never hurt you. Please, let me heal you." Dorothy looks up at Zatanna. Blood drips from her chin. She nods. Zatanna slowly approaches her. She looks nervous or even frightened. The camera pans around her to where we can see Xanadu is standing in the vision. It also reveals the dagger hidden behind Zatanna's back. A small teddy bear appears on Dorothy's shoulder. Sergeant Stuffy whispers something into her ear. Dorothy looks up at her with sad eyes. "You have a knife behind your back?" Zatanna looks surprised. She lets the knife come into view. Dorothy begins to cry, her tears mixing with the blood running from her missing eye. "Why?" Zatanna says. "There was no other way." She pulls the dagger out and runs towards Dorothy. A gigantic claw clutches her by the skull. It drips with hot wax. It holds her body up before squeezing. The bottom half of her body falls into view, completely severed. Dorothy screams as Candlemaker does her work. She curls into a ball on the ground. We can see a shadow terror open up behind her, and the Upside Down Man creeps out of it, twisting his body to pull himself through. He smiles when he sees her, genuinely fond, until she turns to look at him with one missing eye. He looks abhorred. "What did they do to you?" She doesn't answer. He approaches her, then Upside Down Man reaches out a hand. Dorothy takes it while sobbing. "You were right about them. Everything you said, they're monsters." Upside Down Man hugs her tight, and she begins to sob into him. Something lands next to Xanadu's foot. She picks it up, and we can see it's a Toro card, the Hanged Man. More begin to come into view. Some hanged men, some death. They begin to flow into the room like water. They fill up the room around her. Xanadu begins to panic, the cards growing up to her waist. She's going to drown in them. Soon she's clawing to fight her way out of thousands of cards, trying to keep her head above the water. Soon, they completely swallow her, and she finds herself in a different place. She's outside on a hill of snow-made grass. We see an older version of Dorothy standing side by side with Upside Down Man. The bleeding cut is now a large, twisting scar running down her face. She's maybe 25 or 30. They both wear fur cloaks that billow behind them. They stand on a cliff overlooking a field of snow. We can see men fighting off twisted and bizarre creatures. The living shadow slithers from man to man, killing them with ease. The snow is coated thick with blood. And in the center of it, we see Candlemaker. He rips men apart with his terrible claws as they attempt to fight him with swords. A large group of men begins to approach Upside Down Man and Dorothy with swords drawn, screaming a battle cry. The older Dorothy's single eye begins to glow bright white. Her skin becomes luminescent, and she floats into the air. She turns to look at them. She holds up her hand, and they all burst into flames, turning to ash. The scene begins to flicker, cutting between the shattering and the scene of the battlefield. The older Dorothy says, "Kill them all. Kill them all. Wipe them out." Upside Down Man agrees with her. In the plague of free will, heal the universes. The bodies begin to pile around Dorothy and Upside Down Man in an almost stylistic way. Dorothy and Upside Down Man seem to rise into the air atop the pile of corpses, infinite corpses, more than can be imagined. We see the shattering begin to surround them, the cracks beginning to fade. They seem to fill in one by one until the sky is nothing but an endless darkness of color. No cracks, no shattering. Upside Down Man turns to regard Xanadu as if he can see her. Kill them all. Heal the rift. Back to how it was. You know you walk the right path, witch. This is the inevitable conclusion. She's thrown from the vision violently. The shattering begins to appear all around her, growing more and more fierce, until the whole world explodes into a shattering shard of glass. Then she's back on Earth. Shade is looking at her confused. Xanadu, are you okay? She looks up at him with fear in her eyes. She says, Shade, we have to kill Dorothy Spinner. And that is where I'm going to end the movie. We're going to cut the credits as the song Daylight begins to play. There is only one after credit scene, numero un dito. I'm actually being very conservative on the after credit scenes. We're going to see a man sitting atop a mountain. There's nothing around him, only snow and a single group of flowers growing. It's like atop Everest, like in Nepal somewhere. You can see all the mountains in the distance. As we go closer to him, we recognize him. It's Chemo, only he's not in his suit. The single flower growing next to him begins to wither and die. He sighs looking at it. He seems to be meditating. Then he stands up. We see his suit made of lead, a little dinged up and covered in snow. He gets inside of it. We see a shot of him walking towards a shrine in Nepal. At that shrine, we see a Buddhist monk, or they're wearing Tibetan Buddhist robes, like the Dalai Lama sort of. And we can see they're in a Nepalese shrine of some sort of top of a mountain. Chemo sits down next to him and says, "It didn't work." The Buddhist says, "As I told you, we cannot help cure your ailment. You must seek elsewhere." He nods and says, "I think there is not a place on earth that can cure me." The Buddhist says, "Perhaps, but maybe in the next life you can attain that which you seek." Chemo nods, "Maybe." The monk turns to him and says, "You have a visitor, someone who wishes to speak to you." Chemo looks confused. He says, "Me?" He says, "Yes, she's over there." Chemo turns to look, and he's surprised. But before we can see, we're going to cut the credits. You guys are going to have to wait for the payoff to that in the next movie.
I lied. Oh yeah, baby, I lied big time. That was really dark. I really did kill half the cast. Everything I said on Discord was true. Yeah, I lied again. I like to spread misinformation. I like to mess with y'all. Happy Thanksgiving, guys. Remember, the conversation that you should spread at the dinner table. Talk about Trump. Talk about nothing but Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Hey, isn't it great that he won the election? Or, hey, isn't it horrible that that fascist won the election? Hey, Donald Trump is going to clean up our borders. No, he's not. He's going to be the next bad mustache man. Remember, you've got to tailor your controversial conversation to which family member you're talking to. That way you can aggravate everyone equally. All right, I've been Bjorn. I'll see you all in the next one.